The stars stretched endlessly over the bridge of the starlings, glittering like tiny fires against the black. Commander Jaren stood at the observation window, his uniform crisp but his mind restless. Humanity had traveled far into the galaxy, yet humans were still treated like second-class citizens. Other species, taller, stronger, or faster, often looked down at humans as fragile, weak, and expendable. But Jaren knew one truth: humans survived because of courage, intelligence, and stubborn hearts. The convoy's mission was simple: escort the royal princess of the Zephyrian Empire to the neutral world of Arvalis for a diplomatic summit. Zephyrians were known for their grace, beauty, and ruthless politics. Jaren had heard the rumors: anyone who displeased their leaders vanished without trace. He didn't fear them, he feared failure. "Commander," said Lieutenant Kale, his voice tense. "Sensors detect an approaching fleet. They're not friendly." Jaren turned to the holomap. Red blips moved quickly, cutting across the void with precision. Raiders, pirates, or perhaps political assassins sent by a rival empire. Either way, the convoy was vulnerable. "Alert the princess," Jaren said. "Shields to maximum. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The human crew worked efficiently, but the Zephyrian guards exchanged uneasy glances. They had done this mission many times, yet the numbers were against them. The attackers struck suddenly, a swarm of sleek black ships darting in from the edges of the system. Lasers tore through the vacuum, hitting the convoy's outer ships. Explosions sent fragments of metal spinning through space. Panic erupted among the Zephyrian guards. Many fled toward the core ships, abandoning their posts. Jaren saw the princess inside her shielded pod, her delicate frame pressed against the viewport. Her violet eyes widened with fear, but she remained still. "Stay calm, Your Highness," Jaren said, though he could not hide his own tension. "We will get through this." The black ships cut off their escape routes. Jaren realized immediately: if the convoy tried to run, most would die. If they fought, the odds were worse. He made a decision in a heartbeat, a human-esque decision, one forged in countless moments where courage mattered more than strength. "Kale," he said, voice firm, "take the others to the escape pods. Get the princess to safety. I'll hold them off." "What?" "You can't," Kale began, but Jaren cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Go, now." The younger officer hesitated, then obeyed. Jaren watched as Kale and the remaining crew disappeared into the corridor, leaving him alone on the bridge. The first wave of enemy ships hit. Jaren's ship shuddered violently as shields flared and sparks flew. The human pilot gritted his teeth and pushed the controls, dodging with every ounce of skill he had. Lasers tore past him, some narrowly missing the reinforced hull. He was slower, weaker, and far outnumbered, but he refused to retreat. Every move was precise, calculated, and daring. The attackers expected panic. They expected a human to run. They underestimated him. Hours, or perhaps minutes, he couldn't tell, passed as he fought alone. Systems overheated, alarms screamed, and smoke filled the room. Yet Jaren never faltered. The princess remained safe, shielded by the layers of protective energy he had stabilized and maintained. Finally, he saw Kale's escape pod slip away through the void, the princess inside. Relief surged briefly through him, but it was quickly replaced by the realization he was trapped. The enemy had encircled his ship. There was no path forward. "Then let them come," Jaren muttered. The first attacker ship fired a concentrated blast. Jaren twisted the ship, barely dodging the deadly strike. Hull panels buckled. Sparks danced across the control panels. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing in the small cockpit. Pain burned his shoulder where debris had grazed him, but he ignored it. Humans had a strange ability. They could endure far more than anyone expected. Enemy after enemy came at him. They assumed they were hunting prey. Instead, they found a storm. Jaren used every trick he had learned, maneuvering unpredictably, firing weapons at close range, and exploiting every blind spot. One ship collided with another, a fiery explosion lighting the black like a supernova. Inside his mind, he thought only of the princess. She was small, vulnerable, and unprotected without him. She had no choice in this war, yet she depended on a human she barely knew. That thought alone gave him strength beyond exhaustion. Finally, the last enemy ship tried to ram him directly. Jaren triggered the emergency thrusters and fired the ship's remaining energy in a single, desperate blast. The enemy ship disintegrated in a shower of sparks, its hull torn apart. His own ship shuddered violently. Alarms rang, but the path was clear. He slumped in his chair, bleeding from multiple wounds. Every muscle screamed, every breath burned. Yet he had succeeded. The princess was safe. That alone mattered. "Commander," a voice crackled over the comm, Kale's voice trembling. You did it. She's safe." "I know," Jaren whispered. He did not feel pride, only exhaustion, only the lingering knowledge that he had given everything he had and barely survived. The Zephyrian princess finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Human, you risked everything for me. Why?" Jaren managed a weak smile. "Because it's the right thing to do." For the first time in his life, he realized that words like courage, honor, and sacrifice might mean something to someone beyond Earth. But the moment was fleeting. The enemy's presence still loomed in nearby space. Jaren had bought time, but he had nothing left. No shields, almost no weapons, and barely enough strength to keep himself conscious. As the princess's escape pod leapt into hyperspace, Jaren's vision blurred. Stars stretched into lines as he felt himself slipping from consciousness. Pain and exhaustion consumed him, but even as darkness approached, he felt a strange peace. He had acted as a human should. He had protected the weak when others fled. And in the shadows of space, where no one else could see, the first whispers began among the Zephyrian fleet. A human alone against impossible odds. They did not yet know his name. They did not yet know his story. But soon, every corner of the empire would know. Because a human had chosen to fight when all others ran. Because humans survived. The human lay in the medical chamber, his body battered and broken. The Zephyrian medics worked quickly, their hands glowing with advanced healing energy. His breathing was shallow but steady. He had survived. Against all odds, the human had survived. Around him, the chamber was silent except for the low hum of machinery. The medics exchanged curious glances. Humans were fragile, weaker than almost every other species in the galaxy. Yet this one had not only survived, he had protected royalty from certain death. Word spread quickly through the Zephyrian capital. Whispers moved like wildfire. The human who saved the princess. Most of the nobles scoffed. Humans were simple creatures. They were clever, sometimes cunning, but they were nothing compared to the grace and power of the Zephyrians. Why would the princess trust him? Why would the queen even acknowledge him? But some watched with interest. The princess, still pale from the shock of the attack, insisted on visiting him. She walked quietly into the chamber, her long robes brushing the floor. Her violet eyes studied the human as if searching for some hidden truth. "Human," she said softly. "Do you remember what you did?" He opened his eyes slowly. Pain tore through his body, yet he tried to sit up. I protected you," he managed to whisper. "That's my duty." The princess studied him, her expression unreadable. "Most would run, most would abandon me. You stayed." He shrugged weakly. "Most humans survive by running. I just refused to." Her gaze softened slightly, but she did not speak again. Instead, she motioned for the medics to continue their work. The human drifted in and out of consciousness for hours, the stars outside his window stretching into long lines as the fleet moved silently through space. And all the while, whispers continued to ripple through the palace and the city. When the human finally awoke fully, he realized he was surrounded by alien nobles. They stared at him with suspicion, curiosity, and a little fear. No one approached, no one except the princess herself. "You are alive," she said simply. "That surprises many." He nodded. "I survived, I had to." And yet, she said, stepping closer, surviving is not enough. Your actions have created a complication. He frowned. Complication. The princess turned away, her voice soft but firm. The queen has been informed of what happened. She will decide what this means for you and for the humans. Jaren's heart sank. In Zephyrian politics, the queen's word was law. Her decisions were final. Few dared to oppose her, and even fewer survived such opposition. In the following days, the human remained under careful observation. He healed rapidly, much faster than Zephyrian medics expected. His body had endured injuries that should have killed him, and his spirit remained unbroken. Each time he was examined, he answered questions calmly and honestly. He spoke little, but every word carried weight. Meanwhile, the princess continued to praise him subtly, ensuring that no one could dismiss his actions as insignificant. He is not like other humans, she said to one council member. He showed courage that many of my guards lacked. He acted when we were all weak. The council member frowned. But he is human. They are fragile, unpredictable. Can we trust him to remain loyal, or is this fluke? The princess shook her head. It was no fluke. He is capable of far more than we realize. His species is underestimated, yet he proved that even a single human can influence the fate of an empire. Rumors of the human's bravery spread across the capital and into distant star systems. Scholars debated whether the human's reputation for fragility was accurate. Politicians whispered about the strategic advantage of having an unexpected ally in the human. Military commanders wondered if humans, though small and weak, could become a force to reckon with if used wisely. But not all attention was positive. Some nobles grumbled about the human being brought into the heart of the capital. He was an outsider, a weak species who had no right to mingle with royalty. Yet even they could not deny the simple truth. Without him, the princess would be dead. The queen's attention remained the most critical. Her decision would change the human's fate forever. She was not a ruler to act without reason. She watched, calculated, and waited. When she finally summoned him to the palace chamber, the human could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. The chamber was vast, the walls shining with a soft, golden light. Statues of past rulers lined the edges, silent witnesses to the queen's judgment. "Human," the queen said, her voice calm but resonant. "You have saved my granddaughter's life. You have done what few would dare. You have proven courage, loyalty, and resilience. These qualities are rare, even among the greatest of our warriors." Jaren bowed slightly, his injuries making movement painful. "I did what I had to do, Your Majesty." The queen's eyes, sharp and unreadable, studied him carefully. "And yet, one life is not easily repaid. In our law, a life saved at the cost of one's own binds the savior and the saved. It creates a debt, one that cannot be ignored, not by law, not by honor, not by the stars themselves." Jaren blinked. "Debt? Yes," she said, slowly pacing. "You risked everything, and for that you have a place in our empire's history, a place few humans or even Zephyrians ever achieve. But there is more. Your presence here changes the balance of power. It challenges how others see humans. It challenges how we see humans. And it challenges what the universe expects of you." He remained silent. Words felt inadequate. He had never asked for recognition. He had never wanted it. All he wanted was to survive and ensure the princess survived. "Many will question your presence," the queen continued. "They will try to diminish your actions. They will say humans are weak, that your courage was luck. They will underestimate you, as all species do. But your deeds cannot be erased. And your survival proves that humans are not so fragile as they appear." For the first time, Jaren felt a spark of understanding. He realized that his struggle had already begun to change the galaxy's perception of humanity. One act, small in the vastness of space, could ripple outward, shifting opinions, breaking old prejudices, and redefining an entire species. The queen paused, letting her words sink in. "I have decided," she said finally, her tone commanding. "You will remain under my observation. You will be protected and you will be honored. Those who would harm you, question you, or dismiss you will answer to me. The humans have earned a place in our hearts. You human are the first proof of why." Jaren swallowed hard. Protection, honor, recognition. These were not things he had ever imagined. He had fought for survival, not accolades, not glory, not politics. And yet here they were, offered because of his courage. But even as relief surged, he felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. His actions had consequences far beyond himself. Allies would be counted, enemies would watch, and every decision he made in the future could carry implications for humanity as a whole. Over the following days, the human adapted to his new place in the capital. He was offered quarters within the palace, simple, functional, but safe. Medics ensured his recovery continued smoothly, and though he was treated with respect, the human never forgot his roots. He was still Commander Jaren, still a soldier, still a human who survived when the universe expected him to fail. The princess visited him often, quietly observing as he trained, as he strategized, as he spoke with military advisors. She marveled at how his presence shifted conversations. Ideas flowed differently when he was in the room. Arguments became more cautious. Respect, once withheld from humans, now demanded attention. Rumors continued to spread. Across the empire, whispers reached ears that humans were not weak. That one human, alone and seemingly fragile, had faced impossible odds and prevailed. That human courage, loyalty, and cleverness could rival even the mightiest of Zephyrian warriors. Some laughed at the thought, dismissing it as a story for children. But others, the ones who watched, who calculated, who planned, recognized the truth. The galaxy underestimated humans, and underestimating them was now a dangerous mistake. Jaren himself remained humble. He did not seek power. He did not desire glory. He wanted only to survive and ensure that humanity's name was treated with honesty. And through quiet acts of courage and determination, he began to prove what humans could truly be. Because when the stars themselves watched, they could see one truth clearly. A human could endure what others could not. A human could act when all others faltered. A human could survive and change the galaxy forever. The grand hall of the Zephyrian palace gleamed like liquid gold under the light of thousands of crystal chandeliers. Statues of past rulers lined the walls, their stone eyes staring down at those who dared enter. Today, the human would face the council of nobles, the most powerful and influential beings in the empire. Every species in the galaxy knew that when the council gathered, decisions shaped the fate of worlds. Jaren stepped into the hall, leaning slightly on a support staff. He had recovered far enough to walk, but his injuries were still painful reminders of the battle that had saved the princess. His uniform, though clean, bore faint scorch marks, scars of the struggle he had endured. Whispers spread quickly through the assembled nobles. Many eyed him with suspicion, others with curiosity, and a few with barely concealed disdain. A human in the heart of Zephyrian power was almost unheard of, and yet here he stood. The princess walked beside him, her presence calm and commanding. She did not hold his hand, nor did she touch his shoulder. Her simple act of walking beside him was enough, signaling to the council that he was not a servant, not a guest, but someone of importance. "Human," a stern voice called from the council dais. Lord Vaylor, an influential noble known for his strict adherence to tradition, stepped forward. "You are far from your homeworld. Why do you dare walk among Zephyrians? Your species is known to be fragile. Many doubt your loyalty, your strength, even your intelligence." Jaren straightened his back. "I am a human," he said simply. "I do not deny that I am different. I do not deny that my species is weaker in some ways. But I do not accept that weakness defines us, and I do not accept that I would abandon those who rely on me." Murmurs swept through the hall. Some were impressed, Some were shocked. Lord Vaylor narrowed his eyes. "Words are easy," Vaylor said. "Deeds are rare. What proof do we have that your actions were not mere luck, that you will not fail when the next threat comes?" Jaren's eyes met Vaylor's without hesitation. "The next threat will come as it always does, and when it comes I will act, not for luck, not for recognition, but because it is right." A tense silence followed. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected a human to cower, to bow, to flee from responsibility. Instead, they found someone unafraid, someone who spoke with honesty and resolve. Then, the chamber doors opened slowly. The Zephyrian queen entered, her presence commanding silence without a word. Every noble turned to look at her. Even the statues seemed to bow in the golden light. The queen's eyes scanned the hall, finally resting on the human. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of her gaze was enough to make lesser beings tremble. "Human," she said, her voice deep, calm, and yet full of authority, "you have acted with courage when others fled. You have risked your life to save my granddaughter. You have proven loyalty, resilience, and strength beyond what many would expect. Your deeds have forced me to reconsider what humans are capable of." Jaren bowed his head slightly. "I did what I had to do, Your Majesty." The queen's lips curved into a faint smile. "What you did cannot be undone. What you did cannot be ignored. And what you did changes the balance of this empire." A murmur ran through the hall. "Balance," whispered one noble. "How can a single human affect the empire?" The queen raised her hand and silence fell. "Deeds are not measured by size. They are measured by impact. And this human has shown that courage and loyalty can defy expectations, can defy fear, can challenge centuries of prejudice. He has created a precedent that cannot be ignored." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then her gaze sharpened. "By the laws of Zephyrian honor, when one saves a life at the cost of one's own, a bond is formed. That bond is sacred. That bond protects the one who saved and honors the one who was saved. It is not a bond to be questioned or dismissed." Jaren felt a mixture of relief and confusion. "A bond?" he asked softly. "Yes," the queen replied, her voice firm. "And I, as the sovereign, declare that this human is now under my direct protection. He is not to be harmed. He is not to be ignored. He is to be treated with respect befitting his courage. He is mine." A shocked silence filled the hall. Some of the council members gasped. Others whispered to each other. A human under the direct protection of the queen. Such a thing was unheard of. It was a proclamation that carried immense power. Any harm done to this human would be seen as a direct challenge to the queen herself. The princess, standing beside Jaren, gave him a subtle nod. She did not need to speak. The bond between them and the respect she held for his courage was clear. Lord Vaylor stepped forward, his face tight with indignation. "Your Majesty," he said, "a human cannot hold such a position. It is against tradition, against law." The queen's eyes, sharp and unyielding, fixed on him. "Tradition does not define honor. Law does not define courage. You question this human because you refuse to see the truth. His actions speak louder than your doubts, and under my rule his protection is absolute. Anyone who challenges it will face the consequences." A shiver ran through the hall. Even the most powerful nobles understood the implications. The human was now untouchable. Any attack against him would be an act of war against the queen herself. Jaren remained silent, overwhelmed by the weight of the queen's words. Protection, respect, recognition. These were not things he had ever sought. He had acted out of duty, out of instinct, out of simple human courage. And yet the galaxy had taken notice. Over the next days, his position in the capital transformed. He was no longer an outsider. He was an honored guest, a symbol of human courage, and a living proof that humans could achieve greatness when tested. The council began to consult him on military strategy, on diplomacy, and even on the defense of the capital itself. His advice was listened to weighed, and often followed. Other species began to treat him with respect, and by extension, humanity began to gain recognition across the empire. Even among humans, news of his actions spread. Families told stories of Commander Jaren, the human who faced impossible odds and survived. Children dreamed of emulating his courage. Adults debated what his actions meant for the future of humanity in the galaxy. And yet, Jaren remained humble. He did not seek power. He did not desire fame. He wanted only to survive and to prove that humanity's courage was real, that it mattered, that it could change the course of history. One evening, as he trained in the palace courtyard, the princess approached him quietly. She watched as he moved with deliberate strength, each motion precise and calculated. "You've changed everything," she said softly, "not just for yourself but for all humans." He paused, catching his breath. I didn't do this to change anything. I just did what I had to do." "Sometimes," she said, "doing what is right is enough to change the world." He nodded, understanding the truth in her words. The galaxy was watching humans differently now. One act of courage had opened doors that were once closed. One human had proven that strength was not only in physical power, but in will, in loyalty, in the refusal to abandon others. And as he stood there under the twin moons of the Zephyrian capital, Jaren realized something extraordinary. Humanity was no longer a quiet species on the edges of the galaxy. Humanity had a voice. Humanity had power. And humanity could endure anything. The Queen's words echoed in his mind. "He is mine." Not in ownership, not in possession, but in respect, in protection, in recognition of human courage. Across the galaxy, whispers would spread. Tales of the human who faced death for an alien princess, who survived when all odds were against him, who earned the protection of a queen. And for the first time, humanity's place in the stars was no longer uncertain. It had been claimed, not by conquest but by courage. Months had passed since the Queen's proclamation. Commander Jaren had fully recovered from his injuries, though faint scars remained as reminders of the battle that had changed his life and humanity's place in the galaxy. The Zephyrian capital had grown accustomed to his presence. What was once a curiosity, a human in the heart of alien power, had become a symbol of honor, courage, and unwavering loyalty. Jaren did not seek attention. He did not flaunt his new position or his influence. He simply continued to act as he always had, observing, learning, protecting, and making decisions guided by what he believed to be right. The princess visited him often. She never treated him as inferior or fragile, though she sometimes teased him gently about human stubbornness. Their conversations were simple, thoughtful, and meaningful. Through these discussions, Jaren gained a deeper understanding of the Zephyrian Empire, its politics, and its challenges. And in turn, he taught the Zephyrians about humanity, its resilience, its determination, and its capacity to endure against impossible odds. One morning, the Queen summoned him to her private chamber. The room was quiet, with only the soft hum of energy fields and the gentle light of the twin suns streaming through vast windows. "Commander Jaren," she said, her voice calm but firm, "you have proven something remarkable. Not just courage, not just loyalty, but the truth of your species. Humans are underestimated across the stars. They are dismissed as weak, unprepared, fragile. Yet you have shown otherwise." Jaren nodded, feeling a quiet pride that did not seek recognition. "I only did what any human would do in my place, Your Majesty. I protected the princess. That was my duty." The Queen studied him closely, her eyes softening. "And yet your duty has changed more than a single life. It has changed perception. It has challenged centuries of assumptions. Humans are no longer merely on the edges of our attention. They are now seen. They are now considered." Jaren understood. He had acted without thought of reward, and yet that action had begun a ripple that would touch the entire galaxy. Over the following weeks, Jaren began to notice subtle changes throughout the capital and beyond. Humans in trade ships and diplomatic missions were treated with respect rather than suspicion. Some Zephyrian nobles cautiously invited human advisors to councils. Across the empire, whispers spread that humans were capable of courage and intelligence far beyond expectations. Even rival species began to take notice. Envoys who once dismissed humans now spoke with caution, analyzing the species in a new light. One human had shifted the perception of an entire civilization. Despite this rising influence, Jaren remained grounded. He trained daily, not for personal glory, but to ensure that if danger struck again, he could act without hesitation. He taught other humans in the capital how to defend themselves, how to think strategically, and how to endure when circumstances seemed impossible. And slowly he began to see the first signs of a change. Humans working together with alien species, respected as equals, valued for more than just labor or trade. The princess, observing these developments, smiled quietly. She often reflected on the day of the ambush, when Jaren had refused to retreat. At the time, she had only seen courage. Now she saw the consequences of that courage, the empowerment of an entire species. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the palace towers, Jaren walked through the quiet gardens. The air was filled with the soft fragrance of alien blossoms, and the soft hum of energy fields kept the air warm. He paused at a reflective pool, gazing at the stars mirrored in its surface. The thought crossed his mind. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. Other species had assumed humans were weak, that they could not endure, that they could not act when needed. But one human, through courage, perseverance, and loyalty, had proven them wrong. One human had rewritten what it meant to be human in the eyes of the galaxy. And yet Jaren felt no pride in the sense most would. This was not about glory. It was about responsibility. Humanity had a place now, and with that place came expectations. They would be watched. Their actions would be judged. But if humans acted with courage and honor, there was no limit to what they could achieve. Weeks later, a crisis erupted at the edge of the empire. A hostile fleet from a rival species threatened to invade a Zephyrian colony. Panic swept through the council, and leaders argued over strategy. The fleet was faster, larger, and more experienced. Many assumed that the humans in the colony would be easy prey. Jaren was called to advise. He analyzed the fleet's formation, studied their movements, and suggested an unconventional tactic. The council was skeptical. "This is risky," one noble said. "If your plan fails, the humans will be slaughtered." Jaren met their gaze evenly. "If we do nothing, they will be slaughtered anyway. We must act. We cannot underestimate those who have shown courage before." The council agreed, albeit reluctantly. Jaren's plan was executed with precision. Human soldiers, trained under his guidance, held key positions. Zephyrian forces followed his strategy exactly. The enemy fleet was surprised, disoriented, and unprepared for the tactics employed by humans who fought with intelligence, speed, and cunning. By the end of the battle, the enemy fleet had retreated, humiliated and confused. Casualties were minimal and the colony remained safe. Humans had proved themselves once again, not only in courage but in strategy, skill, and teamwork. Word of this victory spread across the galaxy. Humans were no longer seen as weak, expendable, or irrelevant. They were respected, they were considered, they were acknowledged as a species capable of shaping outcomes in the most critical moments. Through it all, Jaren remained humble. He did not claim credit for himself. He spoke of his soldiers, his crew, the human people who had trained and fought alongside him. "It was not me alone," he said quietly. "It was all of us. Humans endure together. That is what makes us strong." The queen watched these developments with satisfaction. She understood that one human could not change the galaxy alone, but one human could ignite a spark. And when the spark grew, it could illuminate the path for an entire species. One night, the queen called Jaren to her private chamber again. She spoke quietly, almost as if confiding a secret. Humans are remarkable. You have proven what I suspected but did not fully understand. Your species does not rely on raw strength or numbers alone. You rely on heart, on loyalty, on intelligence, on courage. You survive because you endure, because you act when others would flee. Jaren listened, absorbing her words. He had never sought recognition from the queen, but her acknowledgement felt significant, not for him, but for all humans. You have earned more than protection, the queen continued. You have earned respect. You have earned the knowledge that humanity has a place among the stars, and that place will not be taken lightly by anyone. In the quiet of that moment, Jaren understood the full scope of what had happened. Humanity's journey had shifted. They had moved from the edge of observation to the center of consideration. One act of courage had begun a legacy. One human had proven that strength was not always measured in size or weaponry, but in character, resolve, and willingness to act when others could not. And as he left the chamber, the twin moons shining over the palace, Jaren felt a quiet determination. Humanity had been given recognition, protection, and opportunity. Now, it was up to humans themselves to rise to the challenge, to honor the trust placed in them, and to continue proving that they were worthy of the stars. Stories of Commander Jaren spread across space. Young humans on distant colonies spoke of his courage, drawing inspiration for their own lives. Zephyrians and other species debated the true nature of humanity, realizing that a small, underestimated species could possess extraordinary power, not in brute force, but in the enduring strength of heart and mind. Jaren never sought to be a legend. He acted because it was right. But the galaxy had watched and it had learned a valuable truth. Humans endure. Humans act. Humans survive. And when the moment demands it, humans can rise above expectation, defy prejudice, and shape the course of history itself. The human who nearly died for the alien princess had done more than survive. He had proven that humanity had earned its place among the stars, not by conquest, not by dominance, but by courage, honor, and the refusal to abandon others when it mattered most. And somewhere in the quiet chambers of the palace, the queen smiled, knowing that the galaxy would never again underestimate the species that had earned its place, not through size, not through power, but through heart. The stars shone brightly above, reflecting the light of countless worlds, and humanity, small but enduring, had finally stepped forward into its rightful place among them.